NBA, Demon God Pangu dominates basketball. Immortal myth. Episode 21. The performance of Jiang Pan, the Hong Baron Immortal of the Celestial Empire. Roy Murphy figured it out. This game made the NCAA superstar completely play a psychological shadow. On the other side, at the press conference today, Jiang got the first blocked triple-double in NCAA history and also set a new first-half high score. Would you be surprised by that? The reporter asked Coach Humphries. Not surprisingly, the moment he came into the team, I knew he wasn't going to be an ordinary player. His arrival was enough to change us, so I wasn't surprised at all when he got such data, but I'm proud of him. Humphries replied seriously. Although he forcibly endured the joy in his heart, his tone still more or less exposed his heart at the moment. Jiang is so good. Why did you take him out at this time? The reporter continued to ask. Humphries laughed. Ultraman fights monsters, and he always uses his big move at the end. Hearing this answer, everyone at the press conference laughed. Subsequently, the reporter targeted Jiang Pan. Jiang, this is the second game of your NCAA career. In the first game against the University of North Carolina, you saved the whole team and gave us a huge surprise. And today, you led the team to burst the opponent and continued to perform magically. In these two games, you broke multiple NCAA records. Do you think you can continue to play like this in the next game? Jiang Pan frowned slightly. Is your performance amazing? Isn't this a normal play? In my opinion, this is normal. There is nothing magical. If you all think my performance is magical, then the next game, this miracle will continue. Jiang Pan's answer once again shocked all the reporters present. The center strength of this celestial empire is very strong. But this is too full, right? For this answer, some people scoffed, thinking that Jiang Pan was completely talking big. After Jiang Pan finished speaking, he glanced at these reporters at the scene and saw a little disdain in their expressions. Jiang Pan didn't care about this, and he didn't bother to explain. After the interview, Jiang Pan and Arenas were preparing to return to the dressing room. But on the way back, he met Maddie and Grant Hill. It wasn't a coincidence, but they were deliberately waiting here. Jiang, good performance today. Maddie took the initiative to say hello. It's nothing, it's just normal play. Jiang Pan answered casually, not feeling constrained by the fact that the other party was Maddie. I think an inside lineman like you is just right to play with me. Although Maddie did not explicitly say that Jiang Pan would join the Magic team, the meaning of his words was already obvious, and it was almost directly clear. Magic? Jiang Pan thought for a while, but did not get much excitement. Whether you can play next to me depends on your luck. After saying this, Jiang Pan went straight towards the dressing room. Maddie and Grant Hill stood in place with a blank expression, looking at Jiang Pan's departing back. Eileen, Tracy, this kid is too crazy, right? Can you endure this? What do we mean if we can play next to him? Make him look like he's the boss of the team, Hill immediately said unpleasantly. Maddie shrugged indifferently. Don't you think he has a lot of personality? Only such a crazy character is suitable for being the leader of the team. As I just said, basketball is a team competition, and if he is really as strong as a shark, I am willing to assist him. After returning to the dressing room, Arenas was surprised by Jiang Pan's performance just now. Jiang, that's Tracy McGrady and Trans Hill, current NBA superstars. How come you aren't excited to meet them at all? Jiang Pan replied indifferently. Everyone is human. What is there to be excited about? Do they look different? Also, you say they are NBA superstars, but their future achievements may not be as high as mine. Hearing this, Areniston was speechless. You are my teammate, otherwise even he would want to teach this arrogant guy a lesson. After the game, Troy Murphy's words caused a sensation on the internet. His sentence, Jiang Pan is the mythical figure of the Celestial Empire, which is indeed somewhat appropriate. In just a few days, the name Jiang Pan suddenly caught fire in the Celestial Empire. So X-Wave, CTV, and others are all rushing to report on it. NCAA League surprises Celestial Empire players. Celestial Empire player Jiang Pan ruled the NCAA arena. Jiang Pan, the first person to stand in the NCAA Celestial Empire. The beast of the Celestial Empire broke out of the cage and parachuted into the United States. In the past few days, reports on Jiang Pan on major platforms have emerged one after another. What is even more strange is that the Celestial Empire men's basketball team knows nothing about this player's information. No one knows where Jiang Pan came from, all the information about him is blank, and he really seems to appear out of thin air. Jiang Pan was completely popular in the Celestial Empire, and even many grandpas and aunts who bought vegetables and flowers on the streets and alleys could see reports about him. In particular, a series of video replays were spread on the major sports websites of the Celestial Empire, and the footage of Jiang Pan smashing rebounds and various caps stunned the fans of the Celestial Empire. Now the Celestial Empire, as long as the fans who like to play basketball, almost all know that the NCAA has a Jiang Pan. You know what? We have an amazing player, Made, who can dunk rebounds. It's up to you. It's all his news these days, and even my 80-year-old grandfather saw it in the newspaper. Who is he? Why can't you find his information? Why do you care so much? As long as he wins glory for the Celestial Empire, it is enough. Exactly. With his performance, he may be able to enter the NBA in the future. If you can play in the NBA, that's really amazing. I believe he can. We Celestial Empire players can also gain a foothold in the NBA. For a time, the fans of the entire Celestial Empire were discussing Jiang Pan. Over the years, the development of the NBA in the United States has become better and better. However, due to congenital conditions, no Celestial Empire player has been able to truly stand in the NBA. Celestial Empire fans have actually been looking forward to the day when Celestial Empire players can play in the NBA battlefield. Now, the appearance of Jiang Pan has made the fans of the Celestial Empire see hope. In fact, not only the Celestial Empire, combined with the explosive performance of these two games in Jiang Pan, a lot of news broke out in the United States. Everyone is discussing whether Jiang Pan will participate in this year's draft. In the first game, Jiang Pan was famous in the NCAA, and this time, Jiang Pan was completely popular in the whole race. From obscurity to national popularity, it only takes 2 games. Episode 22. Back in the school dormitory, Jiang Pan noticed that his name had exploded in basketball circles in the United States. Almost everyone is talking about themselves, and the major forums are reporting on themselves. In this regard, Jiang Pan also felt slightly surprised. I obviously only played 2 games, and the result was so hot, the fire was too sudden. In fact, the reason for Jiang Pan's popularity is not just because of his excellent performance in these 2 games. Another very important reason is the label of Celestial Empire, because before him, there had never been a Celestial Empire player who could play in the NCAA. Even if there are players from the Celestial Empire who have made it to the NBA before, their performance is not outstanding. Therefore, in the impression of the Americans, the physical fitness of the Celestial Empire players is very poor, and they do not have any advantages in confrontation at all. But now, the emergence of Jiang Pan has begun to make many people change their original views. It turns out that the players of the Celestial Empire also have a powerful existence, and even Jiang Pan's performance is unique, even more explosive than when O'Neal was in the NCAA. At this time, Arenas came over holding the computer. Jiang Pan immediately thought that this product was to share those wonderful little movies with himself. Jiang Pan said, "You updated it and that played again? But I'm not interested." "I'm not." Hearing these words, Arineston's face was full of black lines. The page he opens now is not a mess of little movies, but draft predictions. "Put away your dirty thoughts, Jiang. Am I that kind of person?" Arenas said seriously. If Jiang Pan didn't know everything about him, he really thought he was a decent gentleman. "No update? I don't want to watch it even more. You can enjoy it yourself." Jiang Pan waved his hand in disappointment. "You special. I said it's not that thing." Arenas directly slapped the computer in front of Jiang Pan. "This is draft prediction, with your name on it. Are you sure you don't want to take a look?" Hearing this, Jiang Pan was slightly stunned. "Did your name appear on the draft prediction? So soon?" "I've only played 2 games." Jiang Pan was a little surprised. "I have only played 2 games, and I don't care about the hot country. After all, there are so many multimedia reports. Even the draft prediction has its own name, and the attitude of these old beauties has changed quite quickly. I was also surprised. After only 2 games, they lined you up, and they were taller than me." Arenas couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Tall than you, haha. I won't be sleepy when you say this. Show me." Jiang Pan took the computer from his hand and browsed it on the webpage. He was surprised to find that his draft prediction ranking did surpass Arenas, and he went far and went straight into the lottery area. Even surpassed Haywood and Troy Murphy to come down in 9th place. And this position originally belonged to Joe John, who was previously the 9th pick. In just 2 games, he not only entered the draft ranking, but also ranked 9th. Successfully broke into the lotto zone. This is the first time in the history of the NCAA. "When I was in high school, I met Joe John, and that guy was a very talented forward." Arenas shrugged and said, "From the first year of high school to college, I have always been the existence of the singles king, and as a result, you have now surpassed his ranking, and I feel that all this is too unreal." Jiang Pan scratched his head. "Well, this is just a prediction, not a real draft. There is no need to be too serious." Arenas said, "Yes, the list changes a lot depending on the performance of the players, maybe because you played these 2 games so well." Meanwhile, inside the dormitories of the University of Kentucky, Joe Johnson turned off his computer. He also learned that Jiang Pan's draft prediction exceeded his own, and he was in a very bad mood. Why put a Celestial Empire center in front of him who has just played 2 games? He was not convinced. However, according to the array table, the next game, the University of Kentucky will play against the University of Arizona. Joe John smiled. "Interesting, we'll meet in the next game. At that time, you will have the opportunity to fight Jiang Pan directly." Joe John is excited to prove to everyone that he is a better player than Jiang Pan. This season, the University of Kentucky is strong, and the team has 2 cores. The first is Joe John, and the other is Tyshawn Prince. These 2 people, one is the future singles king of the NBA, averaging 20+ per game all year round. The other is the famous Little Prince of the Alliance, one of the future Piston 5 Tigers. If the right historical trajectory is followed, He will play as a starting power forward for the Pistons and a player for the NBA's four-time all-defensive team. Jiang Pan, you wait for me. In the next game, I will regain the position that belongs to me. Joe John's eyes are fiery, and the singles king has his pride in his bones. Joe Johnson, who has always been a Buddhist teenager, was robbed of the 9th pick in the draft before the draft. Even he, who has always been Buddhist, burst into anger. Joe, don't worry. At that time I will use defense to teach him to be a man. Prince on the side echoed. After he heard about Jiang Pan's strength, he also wanted to compete with him for a long time. You know, he represents the NCAA's strongest level of interior defense. University of Arizona, Jiang Pan and Arenas are still browsing the rankings on the list, and Arenas' ranking has also changed, rising one place compared to before. By the way, something suddenly came to my mind. Arenas exclaimed, our next opponent seems to be the University of Kentucky. Jiang Pan glanced at him calmly. Why make such a fuss? Isn't it a Kentucky? When the time comes, they will go home and gnaw mud. Jiang Pan did not put his opponent in his eyes at all. In his opinion, no team in the NCAA league can pose a threat to him. Don't be so arrogant, they're not so easy to deal with. The teams that can make it to the round of 16 are not weak, and they have top defenders like Tyshawn Prince. Saying this, Arenas paused slightly, and some past events were recalled in his mind. He continued, when I was in high school, I also met Tyshawn Prince, who was the first inside lineman in the whole meter. Jiang Pan, your high school is really miserable. Arenas, don't underestimate this guy. Even now, he's also the best defensive team player in the NCAA. Arenas said, his defense is not comparable to Murphy and Haywood. The next game, the University of Kentucky will definitely use him to defend you. You have to be careful. Jiang Pan still replied indifferently, I know he has good defensive ability, but that's all. He was able to make the best defensive team because I didn't come. Arenas looked at Jiang Pan, who was full of confidence, and was also a little helpless. This guy is good everywhere, it's just too inflated. Episode 23. Mr. Davis, I suggest you pay more attention to this player Jiang Pan. If he participates in the draft, he will be our first choice for the center in the new season. I saw that guy play with Grant and I felt like his dominance on the pitch was unprecedented. Maddie had already sent a message to the team's general manager, but he was still not at ease and called the boss again. Magic owner Richard DeVos also happened to be watching this game. He knew that Maddie was not exaggerating, and Jiang Pan's performance on the court really surprised him. It is no exaggeration to say that Jiang Pan's performance reminds him of the hegemonic league Big Shark O'Neal. In 1992, the Magic drafted O'Neal with the top pick. Unfortunately, O'Neal did not win a championship for the team in his 4 years with the team, and they were not able to keep the supercenter on the team. Now that the Sharks in Los Angeles have a championship trophy in their hands, he is working on a second trophy this year. Now, the appearance of Jiang Pan immediately moved Richard DeVos. Already missed an O'Neal, he didn't want to miss another Jiang Pan. He was ready to rob people, and he didn't need Maddie's reminder that he was going to strike. Mr. Davis, you can't hesitate. Missing Jiang Pan will be a regret for many teams in the NBA. Maddie reminded again. I know, I already have a plan. This Celestial Empire player is also a proud candidate in my heart. After saying this, he hung up the phone and began to calculate in his heart. However, with the current situation of the Magic, it is almost impossible to get the Jiang Pan through the draft, and the only hope is a trade. Maddie put down her phone, and all she had in her mind was the picture of playing ball with Jiang Pan. Now the OK combination dominates the alliance, but once Jiang Pan arrives, he will not be afraid of OK, and even he has the confidence to surpass. The Magic have only one task next season, and that is to win a championship. And Maddie also firmly believes that as long as you have Jiang Pan, you can have everything. On the other hand, the entire Philadelphia 76ers is working hard to make the playoffs. In the team's locker room, answer Allen Iverson had just finished training, and Uncle Moo asked him, Aaron, have you watched the March Madness game? March Madness? No, Iverson said, you know, my mind is on the playoffs right now, where there is still energy to pay attention to the NCAA game. Iverson waved his hand. This year's Philadelphia 76ers are champions, and Iverson, as the team leader, has no other mind to focus on others, not to mention the NCAA. But it is said that on March Madness this year, a genius boy appeared, a center of the Celestial Empire. Mutombo said leisurely, is it? That's interesting, Iverson answered casually, not caring at all, but Mutombo was energetic. Arun, this Celestial Empire center seems to be called Jiang Pan. He has only played 2 games so far, but in draft prediction, he is ranked 9th. He came off the bench in his first game and scored 30 points in the second half to help the University of Arizona reverse the University of North Carolina. In the second game that ended not long ago, he was already the starting point for the team, and he scored another 30 points in the first half. Wow. And he also got a super data close to a triple-double. Then in the second half, he had a triple-double. God, this is the first triple-double in the NCAA league. Mutombo became more and more excited the more he spoke, but Iverson still didn't want to pay too much attention. just answered a few casually. Now Everson's eyes are only the playoffs, and that coveted championship, but Mutombo was still chattering until he said it. I think you'll love the way he plays, and if you can play with him, it's going to be beyond okay. Saying this, Mutombo's expression was a little dark. He is now past his prime, and although he still has half a tank of fuel in the tank, he believes that he is no match for O'Neal at all. It simply couldn't help Iverson much. The reason why he introduced Jiang Pan to Iverson in this way is to let Jiang Pan come to the 76ers and help Iverson and himself realize his dream. Iverson was not impressed by Uncle Moo's introduction at first, but heard the sentence beyond okay combination. He suddenly came to the spirit. Mutombo immediately handed the phone to Iverson, which showed highlights from Jiang Pan's matches. Iverson glanced at it. Just this glance is a glance of 10,000 years. He was deeply attracted by Jiang Pan's violent style of play. He had never been so excited because of a person. Iverson suddenly stood up from his seat. 3 minutes. I want to see all his information. Don't worry. Mutombo saw that Iverson became interested in Jiang Pan, and immediately said, his next game will happen at our home stadium. We didn't have a game that day. Do you want to go to the scene together? Of course you can. Iverson agreed. I saw a light in his eyes, and he was looking forward to Jiang Pan's next performance. In addition to them, there are many NBA teams watching Jiang Pan, especially those teams with lotto picks in their hands. Jiang Pan prediction is now ranked 9th, which is not very high, but it is definitely not low, and maybe he will still have room to rise, so even if he announces his participation in this year's draft, it will not be easy to get him. For this reason, many teams have begun to pave the way, and in their opinion, Jiang Pan can definitely become the cornerstone of team building. As long as you get him and build a squad around him, you will immediately become a strong contender for the title in the new season. Like the Spurs' Stone Buddha Duncan, he was the top pick in '97. In order to get him, all the teams were crazy to get him, and in the end, it was the Spurs who came out on top. In his second season with the Spurs, Tim Duncan helped the team win a championship. It turns out that those teams were crazy for him, and it was definitely a wise choice. Now, Jiang Pan also has the same potential as Duncan. It's just that he appeared too suddenly. If Jiang Pan can appear earlier, then his performance will definitely cause another wave of bad NBA teams. At this time, inside the training hall of the University of Arizona, head coach Humphries is pushing the players to train. In a few days, they will have a showdown with the University of Kentucky for a spot in the elite quarterfinals. They need to use these days to keep their form at their best, because the opponent is very strong. Humphries believes that although they have the Jiang Pan, they may not be able to defeat their opponents. Their goals have now shifted. The NCAA championship is the end of the team, so they need to take every game seriously and not make any mistakes. In the training hall, the sound of violent buckles continued to sound, and there was no need to think that it was Jiang Pan who did it. Humphries is also helpless. This guy is also violent dunks when training. He is really afraid that Jiang Pan is too excited to practice, and then smash the rebound. This is not the NCAA arena, and damage to team property is subject to compensation. In the first tryout, Humphries gave a rebound for it, and he didn't want to spend any more. Episode 24. 2 days later, March Madness kicked off in the round of 16. University of Kentucky versus University of Arizona. It is worth mentioning that this game will be played at Center Stadium, the home of the Philadelphia 76ers. Allen Iverson and teammate Dikembe Mutombo appeared at the 76ers home court to watch the game. These two are both superstar bigwigs in the league. This season, he averaged 31 plus 5.5 plus 4.5 plus 2.8 points, assists, rebounds, steals per game. Scoring steals are the first in the league, and the MVP is almost fixed by him. Scoring, assists, rebounds, steals. Although Uncle Moo is no longer at his peak, he is still able to play an average of double-doubles per game. This season, Mutombo averaged 11.5 plus 10.8 plus 2.4 points, rebounds, blocks per game. The appearance of the two of them immediately became the focus of attention on the scene, and when the reporter saw them, he immediately stepped forward to interview. Aaron, now that you are in a critical moment in the playoffs and should be actively preparing, how can you have time to watch this game? Faced with a reporter's question, Iverson and Mutombo looked at each other, and then took off their jackets at the same time. Under the coats of these two people, it turned out to be Jiang Pan's jersey. We just came to see Jiang Pan, the two answered in unison. Uncle Moo and Iverson's words immediately stunned the reporter. Looking at the reporter's shocked look, Uncle Moo added, in my opinion, Jiang Pan may be the next Shaquille O'Neal. Before this, many people have made such assessments. But when this sentence comes out of Mutombo's mouth, the weight is completely different. Mutombo is known to be a super defensive center in his own right, so he has the most say in the identification of the center. Hearing such an assessment, the reporter was already stunned. The next big shark. I never expected that Uncle Moo's evaluation of Jiang Pan was so high. Before the start of the match, as is customary, journalists need to conduct pre-match interviews with both teams. He came up to Prince and said, I just did an interview with Allen Iverson and Dikembe Mutombo. Dikembe said that Jiang Pan will be the next Shaquille O'Neal, What do you think about that? Taishan Prince shook his head. I don't know where this sudden guy came from, let alone what the demon god is. All I know is that right now, you're in front of the best defensive player on the NCAA inside. Prince didn't take Jiang Pan too seriously. Moreover, there is nothing wrong with his words. He is indeed a member of the NCAA all-defensive team, and has the strongest interior defensive ability. Please don't blow that Celestial Empire center forward. This game, we will beat him back to the original form. Zhou Zhan on the side also came over. He was very dissatisfied with draft's ranking. In his opinion, even if Jiang Pan is very talented, he will not be ranked ahead of him. He has always been worried about this, and today is the best time for him to prove himself. Later, the reporter came to Jiang Pan. Jiang, this is the third game of your NCAA career, and these 3 games are stronger than the other, and it is a constantly challenging process for you. In this game, you are going to face Taishan Prince, and I think you should know something about him. The NCAA's strongest interior defender will also be the strongest challenge you'll face. Do you think you can beat him? Best interior defender? Jiang Pan shrugged indifferently. You all say that he is the best interior defender, but I haven't fought him yet, so I don't know what level your so-called strongest is. Jiang Pan also did not take Prince seriously. Any team that tries to prevent us from winning the title will not end well. Arenas came out of nowhere and interjected, which was the pride in his bones. Of course, the reason why he is so confident is also because of the existence of Jiang Pan. After a few moments, the pre-game warm-up ended and the game officially began. The starters from both sides came out and played the center circle jumping ball. Jump. Ball. Jiang Pan turned to Prince, and he quietly made a look at Arenas. Beep. The referee's whistle blows while throwing the ball upwards. Jiang Pan crushed Prince, stretched out his long arm, and dialed the ball into Arenas' hand. After landing, he rushed to the front court at full speed. Seeing this, Arenas made an ultra-long-range quartile-long pass and assisted Jiang Pan to complete the opening quick air catch. In the first offense of the opening game, it took less than 3 seconds for Jiang Pan to dunk the ball into the basket. Prince stood outside his 3-point line and looked at Jiang Pan hanging from the basket in amazement. His brows frowned slightly. This guy's speed was probably too fast, and he was gone in the blink of an eye. Woo-woo. The first goal of the opening, Jiang Pan made the fans shout, and the atmosphere was instantly ignited. Back to the University of Kentucky's offensive. Zhou Zhan is holding the ball on the outside, ready to play singles. At this time, Prince came to the free throw line to ask for the ball. Johnson hesitated, but still passed the ball. After receiving the ball, Prince faced Jiang Pan's defense. Prince's offensive prowess is not bad, but it is not as good as his defense. Facing Jiang Pan, he first shook for a while, but it didn't have any effect. Immediately afterwards, Prince tried to hit his back against him, but no matter how hard he exerted, he could not open the river. This shocked him in his heart. It seems that this Celestial Empire center forward is not as easy to deal with as he thought. Forcing an offense was obviously less than ideal, and Prince intended to pass the ball back to Zhou Zhan to finish the offense. But at this moment, Jiang Pan suddenly took a step back, giving Prince a shooting space. Prince was immediately overjoyed, and the court experience of the Dark Road Jiang Pan was still too little. He's a mid-range crosshair, and he can hit around 50% of the field. Swoosh! In the next breath, Prince instantly merges the ball and jumps out. No problem, it feels just right. However, at the moment he struck, Jiang Pan had already made a prediction in advance. He jumped up suddenly and slapped the ball with precision. Snap! With a crisp sound, the ball flew directly into the hands of his teammates, and quickly pushed back the counterattack. Jiang Pan once again rushed at full speed, and Prince rushed to catch up, but the distance between the two was pulled farther and farther. Boom! The sound of the violent buckle sounded again. This is the second empty catch of Jiang Pan's game. Jumping down from the basket, Jiang Pancha looked at Prince, who was stunned in place. Is this the best defensive player on the NCAA inside? Jiang Pan asked. Lao Tzu is afraid that he is not playing a fake NCAA, right? Episode 25. Jiang Pan's mocking voice sounded in Prince's ears. This made him feel humiliated, but he also had a new understanding of Jiang Pan. It seems that if he wants to prevent Jiang Pan in this game, he must devote all his energy. You wait, you will pay for your hubris. Prince immediately snorted back. In the opening 2 attacks, Jiang Pan interpreted what is called physical talent. It's really hard to imagine how he did it. Taishan Prince can't keep up with the speed of the river at all. Commentator Kenny Smith exclaimed. The fans at the scene kept shouting Jiang Pan's name, and a large part of the people here came to watch the game because of Jiang Pan. In the audience, Iverson and Mutombo were also surprised by Jiang Pan's speed. I didn't expect him to be so big and have such a fast speed. It's incredible. The first time Mutombo came to the scene to watch the game, he was impressed by Jiang Pan's performance. He even felt that Jiang Pan was even more powerful than what he saw in the video highlights. How heavy does this guy weigh? Iverson asked suddenly. Looking at his information, it should be 128 kilograms. Mutombo answered seriously. Hearing this answer, Iverson was immediately shocked. Such a weight can have such a terrifying athletic ability. This center of the Celestial Empire, really a monster. His running ability alone is even better than that of ordinary speed guards. At this time, many hidden scouts in the stadium took out small books and wrote down a sentence on it. He weighs 130 kilograms and is 216 centimeters tall. but he has faster speed than a defender. Of course, this weight data may have exaggerated elements, which is also to reflect the power of Jiang Pan. This guy is definitely a rare wizard in 100 years. On the court, Prince, who was hit twice in a row by Jiang Pan, is eager to prove himself. For the next round, Prince still wanted to try to attack. He holds the ball in the middle of the range and uses his footsteps to shake off the Jiang Pan defense. However, he found that the ability to move, which he had always been proud of, had completely lost its effect in front of Jiang Pan. Once there is no advantage in speed, it will be difficult for Prince to score in front of Jiang Pan. But Prince didn't give up either, and he tried several unsuccessful attempts to break through, only to choose a mid-range jump shot again. With the first experience, this time, he deliberately increased the arc, wanting to avoid the closure of Jiang Pan in this way. His ideas are brave, but the reality is skinny. Even though he turned up the arc of his shot, the ball still could not avoid the fate of being blocked. Pung, Jiang Pan is like a helicopter going straight up and down. Amazing bounce, combined with excellent reach, will once again fan the ball. What's even more exaggerated is that this cover also directly flies the fan to the center circle position. Jiang Pan rushed with all his strength, like an attack on Titan, and quickly pushed up a counterattack. 1 second, he was still at the far end of basketball, and the next second, Jiang Pan was already at the forefront. How the hell did he do it? TNT commentary, Kenny Smith said with a confused look. He feels that every game, Jiang Pan can bring surprises to fans. I feel like I'm going to wear a pair of reading glasses, and my eyes can't see how often he runs. Flying Pig, Charles Barkley sighed. Today's game is narrated by the two of them. You know, Prince has always been known for his excellent mobility ability, but now, the speed shown by Jiang Pan has suppressed him in all aspects. While speaking, Jiang Pan staged a violent buckle again. In the opening minute, Jiang Pan scored 3 consecutive goals to help the University of Arizona get off to a perfect 6-0 start. For more than a minute, the University of Kentucky didn't even touch the opponent's basket. This opening style is reminiscent of the last game at the University of Arizona. Could it be that the University of Kentucky is also going to follow in the footsteps of Notre Dame and be blasted in the first half? On the sidelines, the head coach of the University of Kentucky saw that the momentum was not right, and hurriedly called a timeout to make adjustments. This kid really has 2 strokes. Prince sat on the bench and said with a frown, "Can you handle it?" The Kentucky head coach asked. Originally, he thought that Prince was enough to limit Jiang Pan, but from these rounds, it didn't seem to be what he thought. Prince hesitated a little, but he still nodded. "I haven't brought out all my strength yet. Next, he won't have such an easy chance to score again." In fact, when he said this, he did not have confidence in his heart. It's just that he has the pride of being the NCAA's #1 interior defensive player. How can he say no at this time? Even if Jiang Pan's strength is strong, he has to resist it hard. Hearing this answer, the head coach of Kentucky naively chose to believe and decided to continue to let Prince defend the river alone. As everyone knows, it is precisely because of this decision that their defeat has been accelerated. After the timeout ended, the game continued with the University of Kentucky sending out a touchline ball. Singles king Joe John did not pass the ball again. This time, he chose to attack himself. Bang! Bang! After a continuous crotch dribble, followed by a turn and a change of direction, the defender was immediately cleaned up. Then the emergency stop jumper shot. The basketball hit steadily. For the University of Kentucky, the goal was so crucial that at least on the scoreboard, their score was no longer 0. Joe deserves to be called the singles king, and his offensive skills on the outside are perfect, Kenny Smith said leisurely. After the timeout, the University of Kentucky picked up and they changed the way they attacked. I wonder if they can regain the disadvantage in the score. Charles Barkley gave a big question mark. In his opinion, if the University of Kentucky wants to recover the score, it is not enough to attack. They must find a way to limit the river on the defensive end. Otherwise, even if Joe John is full of firepower, it will be difficult to tie the point difference. Paul Barkley expected the University of Kentucky to change defensively, but after 10 seconds, he was disappointed. I saw that after Jiang Pan received the ball on the inside, he directly sat on his back to Prince, effortlessly pushed him away, and turned around to be a curved bow and a violent buckle. Kentucky's interior defense has always been at the forefront of the NCAA, but today's battle was a mess by Jiang Pan. In the next few rounds, Jiang Pan completely dominated the inside, and Taehan Prince was miserable. The picture of the violent button constantly appeared in front of Prince's eyes, and there was nothing he could do about it. No matter how he defended, Jiang Pan hit him in only 2 steps, with his back open, plus turned around and dunked. It's so easy, plus enjoyable. In the audience, Allen Iverson frowned. He turned to Mutombo. Is that guy really the strongest interior defender in the NCAA? How does it look as soft as toilet paper? Episode 26. With Kentucky's interior being blown up, Arenas also began to play a strong attack on the outside, tearing up the opponent's defense again and again. Jiang Pan and Arenas, one inside and one outside, a sharp knife, a heavy hammer. On the other hand, Starkey University can only rely on the personal ability of the singles king, Joe Johnson. In the beginning, his scoring can still be very efficient, but as the defensive intensity continues to increase, Joe John's physical energy is rapidly depleting. 10 minutes later, he completely turned into a blacksmith. and almost beat the basket into a 100,000-year soul ring. The University of Kentucky has fallen into a score drought as a result. The scorer kept flashing, but only the University of Arizona's score kept changing, while the University of Kentucky's score had remained the same for a long time. 2 minutes later, the first half of the game was over. 50-25. Under Jiang Pan and Arenas, the University of Arizona took a 25-point lead, which is already a big point difference. Throughout the first half of the game, Jiang Pan slashed 20+20+5 data alone, and there is no doubt that this is destined to be another night of data explosion. And his teammate Gilbert Arenas also had 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists. It is worth mentioning that these 7 assists were all passed to Jiang Pan. When the fans saw such a point difference, they were a little incomprehensible. How did the NCAA's strongest interior defense now become a one-sided situation? Not scoring on the offensive end may be a bad feeling, but being blown up on the defensive end is not a matter of bad form, but a matter of ability. At least from the first half of the game, the name of Tayshaun Prince, the NCAA's strongest interior defender, is indeed somewhat untrue. At halftime, the big screen above the court constantly played back Jiang Pan's performance in the first half of the game. He used his speed to frequently run like a guard on the counterattack and shocked everyone in the stadium. Even if I watched it a few more times, I was shocked. Whether it's the NCAA or the NBA, fans have never seen a guy with such great physical talent. However, Jiang Pan is not completely without its shortcomings. Judging from these games, he seems to rarely dribble the ball, and the only few times can also see his ability to control the ball, and his technical touch is not outstanding. But it's also normal. Most talented insiders in the league don't have great skills. Technology, these things can be practiced the day after tomorrow. And physical talent, no is no. In just halftime, Jiang got the 20+20 data, and it seemed that he was still very relaxed, as if he was passing the house. Kenny Smith looked at Jiang Pan and showed an incredible look. Not only that, but now it seems that he is the fastest moving interior player in the NCAA, and certainly the strongest interior barrier. Tayshaun Prince is completely suppressed in terms of movement speed and defensive ability, and his name may be surrendered. Barkley shook his head in disappointment. It wasn't the game he wanted to see. Speaking of this, he suddenly thought of the words that Mutombo said before the game. Jiang Pan will be the next Shaquille O'Neal. IMHO. I have to make a pertinent assessment. Shaquille is very strong, but in terms of athletic talent, he is not as good as Jiang Pan. Judging from today's performance, Jiang Pan is the mobile Great Wall of the Celestial Empire, with absolute speed and super defense. Hearing this, Kenny Smith was surprised, because he knows that Flying Pig Charles Barkley rarely praises a player like he does today. The Great Wall of the Celestial Empire. I like the title, it's apt. I think if Jiang knew, he would definitely like it very much. Kenny Smith chimed in. Barkley looked at Jiang Pan, who was sitting on the bench resting, but the figure of O'Neal appeared in his mind. A thick color of anticipation suddenly rose in his heart. Kenny, do you want to see two Shaquille O'Neal pitted against each other? Kenny Smith was slightly stunned, and then immediately understood what Barkley meant. Of course. I already have a sense of picture in my head now. With Jiang Pan's current performance, the two are not worried that he will not be able to enter the NBA, and may not even have to wait too long. Kenny Smith suddenly said, Jiang's entry into the NBA is inevitable, but do you think if he participates in the draft, what will he be selected in the first pick? Before, I thought he would be in the top 10 picks, because he played too few games, but now it seems that he is at least 3-1. Barkley shared the same opinion as Kenny Smith, and he immediately said, if Jiang is not the top 3 picks, I can kiss the ass of the donkey in public. Kiss the ass of the ass. Kenny Smith was stunned. This sentence should have been an agreement to Yao Ming. But now, the arrival of Jiang Pan has made this terrier born early. Since he dared to say such words, it meant that he was full of absolute confidence in Jiang Pan. The intermission ended and the second half began. After the first half of the game, the head coach of the University of Kentucky can be regarded as seeing the reality, and it is simply a joke to rely on Prince to prevent Jiang Pan alone. So he redeployed his defense for the second half during halftime. As long as Jiang Pan catches the ball, he will be wrapped up immediately. After the second half started, they did. However, from the perspective of the effect of the bag, there is still no effect, and Jiang Pan can still easily score on the inside. The difference between the two sides has not only not narrowed, but has been widened. On the sidelines, the coach of the University of Kentucky only stomped his foot in a hurry, but even if he stomped through the floor, it was useless. The second half was still one-sided. Halfway through the second half, the difference had widened to 40 points, and the game officially entered garbage time. Taking advantage of a dead ball opportunity, the University of Arizona switched to an all-substitute lineup. When Jiang Pan came down, the fans burst into warm applause. MVP. 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 The MVP slogan sounded again, to the King of Arizona. In the audience, Iverson and Mutombo were also quite touched when they saw such a scene. This picture can't help but remind Iverson of himself back then. He also had great success in the NCAA league, eventually being able to dominate the 96th Golden Generation and become the shortest champion in NBA history. And now, when he saw Jiang Pan's outstanding performance, he also had the idea of joining forces in his heart. All this time, he seems to have played the role of a lone hero. He won MVP this year, but there are many voices claiming that the 76ers will have a hard time playing against the ever-rising OK combination. Mutombo defends well, but he is still too old after all, and it is obviously impossible to get rid of the invincible Sharks. Jiang Pan may be the perfect ideal type for him to win the championship. Episode 27. Eventually, the game was over. The score was fixed at 96-68, and the University of Arizona defeated the University of Kentucky without suspense with a 28-point difference and easily advanced to the elite quarterfinals. So far in the series, the University of Arizona has undoubtedly become the strongest dark horse in March Madness. In all 3 games, they won by a big lead, and their presence did not look like an NCAA-level team at all. Many fans believe that the current University of Arizona team should be between the NBA and the NCAA, and all this is because of the sudden airborne landing of Jiang Pan. In the absence of Jiang Pan, the University of Arizona may not have made it past the first round, and now they have easily advanced all the way to the last 8, which is the transformation that a super player has brought to the team. Throughout the game, Jiang Pan played 30 minutes, cutting 36 points, 30 rebounds, and 7 blocks. This made him the first player in the history of the University of Arizona team to play 35 plus 30. In addition to him, Gilbert Arenas also played extremely well in this game, contributing 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 13 assists, no less than the opposite singles king Joe John. After the game, it was time for the familiar post-match interview. The reporter immediately asked Jiang Pan a sensitive question. After the end of this season, will you participate in this year's NBA draft? Yes, Jiang Pan answered without thinking. Hearing this answer, the face of the head coach Humphries, who attended the press conference with him, changed suddenly. Why did Jiang Pan never mention this to himself? Although he couldn't interfere with the player's decision, he tried to keep it. Jiang, in fact, you don't have to be in such a hurry. After all, you have only played a few games. You can completely hone in the NCAA for another season, and by that time, maybe you will become stronger. Jiang Pan heard what Humphries meant. In fact, he was reluctant to leave the team so soon. Still, he said firmly, "Coach, I think the time is ripe. There is nothing I want to pursue here." As soon as these words came out, Humphries could only nod. He knew that Jiang Pan should not be here, but should go to a higher stage. Although he regretted that he had worked with Jiang Pan for a short time, he could only respect Jiang Pan's choice. Humphries smiled helplessly. "It seems that the fate between you and me is only a few games left." The conversation between the two men, although brief, was very touching, and the journalists present were also moved by them. Immediately, the reporter asked, "Charles Barkley said that you have the qualifications to become a champion. What do you think about this?" "All I can say is that he has a good eye." Jiang Pan replied immodestly, "Haha. I like this answer. A good player should have his own pride." Now a lot of fans are saying that Shaquille O'Neal is your draft template. Do you feel like him? The reporter continued to ask. Faced with this question, Jiang Pan shook his head. "No, maybe our physiques look a little alike, but I'm completely different from him. I don't want anyone to be my template, but I'll be someone else's template. If you have to ask me who my template is, last time, Troy Murphy has already given the answer." Jiang Pan's words made these reporters at the scene look confused. They carefully recalled it, and then suddenly realized. What Jiang Pan said should not be the Demon God Pangu in the mythology of the Celestial Empire. Using the Demon God Pangu as a template, gee, it's really heifer on a plane, and the cow is in the sky. On the other side, Iverson and Mutombo were ready to leave the arena. They heard the post-match interview just now. Now it is completely certain that after the end of this season, Jiang Pan will participate in the draft. The NBA has a good show in the new season. Iverson's eyes were expectant. Jiang Pan may become the biggest spoiler, and my eyes will be all on him. Uncle Moo also agreed with Iverson's point of view. He nodded and said, "It seems that the NBA is going to have a guy who is comparable to Shaquille. If he wasn't our helper, he would be our biggest rival, and I really want him to go." At this point, Iverson picked up his mobile phone, and he did the same thing as Maddie, Katie, and others. At the first time, the management of the team was called, and the scouts who watched the game are now also reporting like their respective teams. After this battle, more and more people paid attention to Jiang Pan, especially after he announced his participation in the draft in front of the media. These teams in the league were all ready to move. Many executives began planning to prepare for the draft. After returning to the University of Arizona, head coach Humphries thought about it and decided to have a good talk with Jiang Pan. At the press conference, he didn't want to say much, and now that he is back at school, he still wants to fight for it. Late at night, in the school's training hall, the two talked on their knees. "Jiang, to be honest, I really can't bear you. There has never been a player like you in the history of the University of Arizona team. Do you really stop thinking about it? And you know, if you hone one more year in the NCAA, you'll get into the NBA with a lot less run-in and more teams going to pursue you." Humphries' tone was a little begging. He really hoped that Jiang Pan could stay and fight for another season. "Coach, there is a saying in the Celestial Empire that there is no unbroken banquet in the world. and when you reach a certain stage, you will eventually be separated. Besides, the NCAA will only delay my development. I have decided that I will bring my talent to the NBA. Jiang Pan replied seriously. In fact, he already has some feelings for here. He won't forget that it was Humphries who gave him the chance to get into the NBA. However, leaving the NCAA is also a ready decision. Humphries let out a long sigh. I see. In that case, then the next game, let's draw a perfect end to this short journey. Jiang Pan got up and made a firm promise. This year's NCAA champion will definitely be the University of Arizona. Hearing these words, Humphries' heart was also comforted. He watched Jiang Pan walk out of the back of the arena, and finally he was relieved. Everyone has their own aspirations, and they can't be forced to stay. What's more, Jiang Pan is still an eagle that is about to spread its wings and soar, and he should indeed fly into the wider sky. You convinced the coach? In the dormitory, Arena said leisurely. It's not persuasive, it's just that he's relieved. Jiang Pan's inner emotions were a little complicated, and there seemed to be an indescribable taste. Watch a small movie. Just downloaded. Arenas pointed to the computer. However, Jiang Pan waved his hand. Look at it yourself, I'm not interested. After saying this, he went to sleep with his head covered. Arenas looked at Jiang Pan, who was somewhat abnormal. He seemed to be able to feel the emotions in it, and did not say anything more. He glanced at the small movie, but he lost interest. Episode 28. In 3 consecutive matches, Jiang Pan's continuous highlight performance has brought him a huge boost in popularity. The major sports media of the United States and the Celestial Empire frantically reported on Jiang Pan. Celestial Empire Center, blast the NCAA's #1 interior defender. Jiang Pan will become a Celestial Empire player who will change the alliance. Jiang Pan has created the strongest dark horse in March Madness and attacked the champion. Achieved the first person in the basketball altar of the Celestial Dynasty, Demon God Jiang Pan. Celestial Dynasty Demon God Jiang Pan, every second in the air. The headlines of various reports are more exaggerated than the other, and the Celestial Empire and the United States are now hot. It can be said that Jiang Pan's current popularity is no worse than those all-star players in the NBA. Especially in the Celestial Empire, Demon God became Jiang Pan's iconic title, and almost every report about him would carry these 2 words. Zhuang, my great Celestial Empire, have you all heard about it? Jiang Pan will enter the NBA draft after the end of the season, is it? That's great. I hope to see him on the NBA court next summer. He will definitely be able to. I believe that with Jiang Pan's strength, it is enough for him to gain a foothold in the NBA, and even become the first superstar in the NBA in the Celestial Empire. It is said that his draft pick has been ranked 9th, which is the ranking of the lottery zone. You got the news a few days ago. It was after playing the University of Notre Dame, and now they have beaten the University of Kentucky. And Jiang Pan's performance is still unique. So I think his ranking is going up again. Maybe he can already rank in the top 5. I'll go. That's awesome too. Will he enter the NBA as a champion? It's not impossible for me. As long as he can lead the University of Arizona to this season's championship, maybe he will really become a champion. The most talked about topic among Celestial fans is no longer Michael Jordan, no longer the OK combination. It's no longer stars like Iverson and Maddie. All voices are talking about Jiang Pan. It's a pity that the Celestial Empire does not broadcast live to the NCAA, and if I want to see Jiang Pan's game on TV, I have to wait until he enters the NBA next season. Yes, I can't wait to see him on the pitch. Fans are eagerly looking forward to seeing Jiang Pan on TV as soon as possible. However, just a day later, the CTV5 channel of the Celestial Empire suddenly announced an important news. CTV5 will broadcast Jiang Pan's next match in March Madness. As soon as this news was announced, the fans of the entire Celestial Empire fell into madness. I'll make it. CTV5 is really powerful. Yesterday, I was talking about waiting until next season, and I didn't expect to announce it today. CTV5 Eternal God, sit and wait for CTV5 to live. The hearts of the fans were extremely excited, and even some basketball fanatics had their hands trembling a little with excitement. And a luxurious CTV5 luxury guest lineup composed of Su Kun plus Su Jiqing plus Zhang Weiping has been sent to embark on a journey to the United States. They have only one mission this time. It is to arrive at the scene and witness the Jiang Pan game with your own eyes. Confirm whether the United States is unilaterally bragging. In the past few days, Jiang Pan and arenas are almost all on the 3-point line, training halls, canteens, and dormitories. On this day, after the training, Arenas and Jiang Pan walked towards the direction of the dormitory. On the way, Arenas heard that the Celestial Empire was going to broadcast the March Madness match, and he was shocked like never before. Because this is the first time that the Celestial Empire has broadcast an NCAA game, you must know that the Celestial Empire has a huge number of people, which will have a huge publicity effect on the NCAA. And all this is because of the merits of Jiang Pan. Nowadays, Jiang Pan's popularity is not limited to schools. He has even become popular at home and abroad. Along the way, the two kept hearing the voices of some female classmates. I went to watch Jiang's game live. He is really handsome, and I want to have a wonderful encounter with him. Forget it, just your pockmarked face. Jiang can look at you as strange. He should like a girl with white and long legs like me. Bah. Do you two match it too? Jiang is my man, he must like big and soft. You three don't have to fight. Just last night, Jiang and I went to the Grove and left a wonderful night there. Might as well tell you that Jiang's strength is not only on the court, he made me very much last night. The voice of several girls communicating was heard by Jiang Pan behind him. Hearing this, Jiang Pan's face turned green with fright. Still drilling into the Grove? When did Lao Tzu see over powder? The United States is really open-minded, and this kind of nonsense dares to say casually. Jiang Pan turned his head and found Arenas looking at him in shock. You beast, that's my goddess. It turned out that the girl who said that she was in the Grove with Jiang Pan had always been the object of Arena's crush. You're crazy, aren't you? Weren't you still in the dorm last night and want to watch the latest little movie with me? When did it go out? This sentence came out of Jiang Pan's mouth, as if something strange. Two big men were in the same room and watched a small movie together, and the picture was unimaginable. Yes, then she is talking nonsense? Arenas breathed a sigh of relief. Not really, but to be honest, your goddess does look good. Saying this, Jiang Pan also deliberately glanced at Arenas. You dare. When Arenas saw Jiang Pan's expression, he immediately exploded. Jiang Pan smiled and said, Don't worry, I'm not interested in this kind of casual woman. Now Jiang Pan has completely exploded in school, and he does not even dare to walk during the day, for fear that he will be surrounded and asked for an autograph after being seen, especially the girls, so he can only haunt in the early morning and at night when there are few people. It is no exaggeration to say that Jiang Pan has now obtained the right to mate freely in the school. As long as he wanted, girls immediately took the initiative to send them to the door, including the goddess in Arena's mind. It's just that Jiang Pan didn't do that. To be honest, these water-based poplar women, he really couldn't look at them. In the United States, in an airport, a plane from the other side of the ocean slowly landed here. 3 of the passengers who walked out of the plane were the commentators sent by CTV5. After getting off the plane, the 3 rushed non-stop to the next game at the University of Arizona and found a hotel nearby. Before the next game starts, they need to gather more information and gain a deeper understanding of Jiang Pan. After all, the news heard in the Celestial Empire was all unilateral reports from the United States, and they did not know what the real situation was. It was only on the way to the hotel that they faintly heard some fans discussing Jiang Pan. From the words of these fans, it is not difficult to find that Jiang Pan's strength may be really strong. Otherwise it is not worth letting these fans talk about it on the road. Episode 29. It's a bit of a pity Jiang didn't dunk the rebound in the last game. I thought Jiang was going to smash a rebound every game. Haha, then it is estimated that the NCAA will give him a ban. But although Jiang didn't dunk the rebound, his 2 open dunks were too handsome. I really envy his physical talent. How good it would be if I also had such a body. It's not just the empty connection. You see that his cover is not directly fanned to the center line, and then a dragon rushed straight to the front. No one can catch up with him. It's really terrible. It's good that Jiang is our teammate, otherwise I would probably be abused out of by him. In the training hall of the University of Arizona, the players began to discuss Jiang Pan after training, and they were moved and honored to be teammates with Jiang Pan. Gilbert, have you seen the matchup table? Who will we be fighting in the next game? Lauren Woods suddenly asked Arenas. Of course I know. It's the University of Alabama, right? Arenas answered. University of Alabama? It's not easy to deal with. They're favorites to win this year. They have the NCAA's strongest 2-gun combination, Mo Williams and Gerard Wallace. These 2 are the absolute trump cards of the University of Alabama. Both have good strength, and are both first-round picks on the current draft prediction list of draft. As a freshman, Mo Williams was able to play well on the court. Gerard Wallace is even stronger. His physical fitness is very good, and he is known as the Spring Man. In his high school years, he was already a member of the McDonald's All-Mile High School star team. If the correct historical trajectory is followed, he will become the leader of the Bobcats after entering the NBA in the future, and a generation of Elvis will be born. These 2 guys are indeed very strong, but we are not vegetarians. Don't forget, we have Jiang now, Richard Jefferson said confidently. That's right. And me, Arenas pointed to himself, which was regarded as forcibly adding drama to himself. 2 days later, the elite quarterfinals of the NCAA March Madness begin, and the 8 teams will compete for a spot in the Final 4. The first game is the biggest dark horse of the season, University of Arizona versus the University of Alabama. The game will be played at the Jazz's home ground, Energy Solutions Arena. As in the last game, there were quite a few scouts in the venue. It is worth mentioning that on the high platform on the second floor, there are 3 Celestial Empire people. It is the trio sent by CTV5, Su Kun plus Su Jiqing plus Zhang Weiping. And in the audience in the front row, sat the second elder of the Jazz, John Stockton plus Karl Malin. The entire stadium was almost full, and most of these fans who came to watch the game came to Jiang Pan. Before the start of the game, the reporter of TNT found the Shenxian elders in the audience and interviewed them. Carl, it's rare to see you and John watching the NCAA game together. Which side will you choose to support for this upcoming game? Faced with a reporter's question, Karl Malone replied without hesitation, of course the University of Arizona, because they own the river. The NCAA league, if you don't come to see Jiang Pan, it will be meaningless. Stockton on the side also echoed, that's right. If it weren't for Jiang, I wouldn't have bothered to come here to waste time. Hearing the words of these two people, the reporter was slightly shocked in his heart. So, you all think that Jiang Pan is the brightest star? Of course. The two nodded at the same time. You know, these two are long-standing superstar players in the NBA. Now I actually came to the scene to watch the game for a Jiang Pan. But then again, each of the games played at the University of Arizona attracts some of the NBA's star players. I have to say that since Jiang Pan became famous in the First World War, his influence has become more and more. It is said that after Jiang announced his participation in the draft after this season, all the teams in the NBA are ready to move. Is this true? Are you guys the same? The reporter continued to ask. Of course it's true. There is no doubt that Jiang Pan is now the first choice for many teams. I read his draft predictions, and although it's not the first place, I think the team that gets the top pick will definitely consider him. Karl Malone said firmly. We are also ready to fight, and if Jiang can come to the Jazz, we are even willing to give up a place for him. Saying that, Stockton couldn't help but look at Jiang Pan, who was warming up on the field, and his eyes were full of talent. The second elder Schwanchi has been playing in the Jazz for more than a dozen seasons, and if it weren't for that god, he would have his own ring. Therefore, now the two of them have long since cared about status or something. What they want most now is to bring a championship trophy to the Jazz. They have been working hard for this, but they are always one step behind. Now, as they get older, the two are past the peak of their careers and are getting farther and farther away from their goal of championship. If they can't inject new blood into the team, they may end up with regret. Jiang Pan's appearance gave them hope, and the second elder Schwanchi eagerly hoped that he would join the Jazz team. In this way, they can also seize the last opportunity to attack the championship. John Stockton, plus Karl Malone, plus Jiang Pan. Gee, this lineup, think about it, make people freeze. It's just that now that almost all the teams in the NBA are staring at him, and it is not so easy for the Jazz to get Jiang Pan. At this time, on the high platform on the second floor of the arena, the CTV5 trio was chatting. Now that we're at the game, you can see that there are a lot of fans in the stadium. It's almost full. Zhang Weiping's tone was a little excited, because this is the first time they have come to broadcast the NCAA League live, and it is all for Jiang Pan. That's right. It's hard to imagine that the NCAA game scene will attract so many fans, and I noticed just now that the Jazz's second elder Xian Hao also appeared in the audience. Su Jiqing said leisurely. We see that many fans are wearing Jiang Pan's jerseys now. These are his fans, and we can see that Jiang Pan has a very high popularity in the United States. In the past few days in the United States, I can often hear some fans discussing Jiang Pan on the road, and I am very proud of that. Su Kun's face was filled with a thick color of joy. The purpose of their coming to the scene to watch the game is to verify whether Jiang Pan's strength is really as unilaterally reported by the United States. Although the game has not yet started, when they see that the scene is such a situation, they already have a bottom in their hearts. Those reports of the American media are absolutely true. The Celestial Empire really produced a very talented basketball player. Episode 30. The key to this game is the outside firepower of the University of Alabama's two-gun. Also, what kind of defensive strategy will they adopt against Jiang? Their interior line is not strong, so the defense against Jiang will be the biggest problem. If it is not handled well and Jiang is allowed to score arbitrarily on the inside, it will be very detrimental to the University of Alabama. They want to win. In addition to defending the inside and playing well with two guns, other role players also need to step up, and only then can the University of Alabama have this possibility of winning. In the American commentators' bench, the commentators of TNT were Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley. Taking advantage of the fact that the game had not yet begun, the two men first analyzed the situation of the game. Charles, in terms of the strength of these two teams, which one do you prefer more? Kenny Smith asked. That's of course the University of Arizona. As you just said, the University of Alabama has serious internal problems, and it can barely deal with other teams, but against the University of Arizona that owns Jiang, they will be greeted with destruction, Barkley said bluntly. After a few moments, the warm-up is over, the whistle blows, and the game officially begins. The two sides jumped in the middle circle, and Jiang Pan easily won the ball with his excellent bouncing power. Since the University of Arizona appeared, he has never failed in the opening jumping session. Jiang quickly rushed to the opponent's basket, and the Alabama center couldn't keep up with his speed at all. Even their outside players can't catch up with Jiang. Arenas sent a second pass, assisted Jiang to complete the air catch and dunk, and also blocked Alabama's double gun. What a great start, Kenny Smith explains. The University of Arizona hasn't changed the way they start in these games. What's even more incredible is that the opponent is completely unpreventable. which seems to have become an unsolved opening game in the NCAA arena. Barkley looked at the Jiang Pan hanging on the basket and immediately sighed. Come. Jinag. At the moment when Jiang Pan completed the empty catch, the fans immediately shouted their slogans. And this scene has appeared in the previous games, which seems to have become a fixed formula in the stadium. On the high platform on the second floor of the arena, when the trio of CTV5 saw Jiang Pan's performance after the opening, he could already completely determine his strength. It seems that the US side is really not unilateral bragging. Even, Jiang Pan is more awesome than they imagined and reported. On the bench at the University of Arizona, the substitute players got up and danced their towels. Race. All you want is passion. Although they no longer play on the court, they must also make their teammates on the field feel their fire-like presence at all times. On the bench at the University of Alabama, on the other hand, it was a bit dull. As soon as the game started, the team's two guns were blocked at the same time, which was somewhat demoralizing. Looking back, the University of Alabama sent out the baseline ball. Mo Williams held the ball through the half, facing Arena's defense, and after continuous shaking, he pulled up and shot. Ugh, the wonderful sound of wiping the net sounds, and the basketball hits accurately. Don't look at Mo Williams' height, but his ability is absolutely unquestionable, and most importantly, he is confident in his shot. Although the NCAA singles king is Joe John, Xiao Mo is also a singles king. And after he enters the NBA in the future, he will also have a resounding nickname called Mo Buchuan. It is because he is very confident in his ability. When he has the ball in hand, the first reaction in his mind is to single. After scoring this goal, Xiao Mo immediately made a celebratory gesture and deliberately roared at Jiang Pan's defense, which was completely like he was going to declare war with Jiang Pan. Both sides started well and Mo Williams responded with a mid-range shot as soon as Jiang completed an empty dunk. It looks like there will be a vicious battle between these two teams today. Kenny Smith's tone was full of expectation. Since the University of Arizona took out the Jiang Pan, every game they have won by a big score, without any suspense at all, which inevitably makes the game less exciting. Kenny, I don't agree with you. I think the University of Alabama can only survive the first half at most. Their inner line is too weak, let alone Jiang. Even if I go up now, I can wreak havoc on their inner line. Barkley replied confidently. On the court, the ball was once again in the hands of the University of Arizona. Arenas was on the outside looking for opportunities with the ball, while Jiang Pan was stuck in the low post. Seeing this, Arenas gave the ball to the past without hesitation. At the moment Jiang Pan received the ball, the University of Alabama directly used a defensive strategy of double bag clipping against him, which they deliberately arranged before the game. For Jiang Pan, it must be wrapped. Wow. At the beginning of the game, Jiang was given a bag to defend, which was obviously a targeted target, that is, not to let Jiang score on the inside. Kenny Smith commented intently. This move also surprised the fans in the stadium, because usually, at the beginning of the game, they will try to defend first. After all, there is a risk of leakage in the bag. If the single defense is really unbearable, it will consider using a double bag clip. But now, the University of Alabama directly uses such a strong defense. This game is interesting. It is so aimed at Jiang Pan from the beginning. It seems that they are very afraid of Jiang Pan's ability on the inside. On the second floor, the trio of CTV5 is also doing the work of commentary. When Zhang Weiping saw the other side dealing with Jiang Pan like this, he was very happy in his heart. Because the stronger the opponent's defense of Jiang Pan, the more it can prove Jiang Pan's strength. I wonder what kind of choice Jiang Pan will make under the face of the bag. Su Jiqing also echoed. When it comes to bags, there are generally two options. Strong play 1v2, or pass. Now, everyone's eyes are on Jiang Pan.